Hi, I want to tell you a story about a horse named Moose. I grew up in California, and from about the age of 7, I worked in my mom's traveling nature class. I grew up around 40 different types of exotic animals. This is where I grew my love for animals. I also love sports. I love competing, and I love going to meets. Unfortunately, when I came to Bali, I couldn't compete at the same level. This is when I turned to equestrian training to mix my love of sports with my love of animals. On September 23rd, 2021, I found my horse Moose in Java. He was a 4-year-old thoroughbred and ex-race horse. He was fat, but unmuscular and still a stallion. At first, I didn't like him. He seemed unspirited and awkward. But slowly after spending time with him, I fell in love, and me and my family decided to take him home. We first took him to a private stable in Java for him to be castrated. This was necessary for him to become more safe around me and other horses. After the castration, there was a complication, and his wound had gotten infected. We put him on antibiotics. Sadly, he stopped eating and started losing a lot of weight. He then colicked for the first time. Colic is a painful problem in the abdomen, and sadly, this is the biggest killer in horses. 2 months later, he arrived. As he walked off the truck, his body was shaking. His coat was rugged and patchy, and he was so skinny you could see his spine and ribs. I was shocked. I had never seen a horse so skinny. But because of the lack of equine vets and proper medication in Bali, I knew I had to turn to more natural resources. I want to share this experience because it has implications for equestrians within Indonesia who may not be able to afford or get their hands on materials they need. Before Moose, I didn't know what colic was. After his first colic, I did some research. According to Equine Illustrated, out of 9.2 million horses, almost 1/3 of all equine deaths are colic related. Because of this, my attention completely focused on that. Unfortunately, this isn't the only thing we were fighting. We were also fighting sore back and poor posture, unhealthy coat and hair loss, colic and giardia, respiratory problems, dental issues and wind sucking, severe weight and muscle loss. All of his issues combined gave him a 40% chance of survival. Moose was also wind sucking. A big issue with horses that are stuck in a box all day, bored and alone, is that it creates bad habits, such as wind sucking. Wind sucking is pretty much the equivalent to smoking for a horse. What they do is they bite down on something, and they suck air in. This can cause a lot of health issues, and it can cause colic. It's also a leading contributor to death. After 4 months of treatment, Moose was better, so I decided to take him to the beach for the first time. I took him in the river, not thinking there was a chance of infection. And when I got back to the stables, he colicked for the 3rd time. Later that day, we found out he had giardia. Giardia is a tiny parasite that travels through contaminated water and food. This whole time, he had been on antibiotics, which killed the good and the bad bacteria. So this wasn't working, so I decided to put him on probiotics, which would give him good bacteria to hopefully counteract the bad. After this, I put him on omeprazole because he had too much acid in his stomach. Unfortunately, this created more health issues. I wanted to use all natural products and medication to reduce any toxic overload left in his body. It's also much better for the environment and is cheaper. After months, we finally restored his gut health. This approach has helped his overall health issues, and hopefully he will be less prone to disease in the future. Next, I took the step to fixing his coat. His coat was dull, with no shine, cuts, scrapes, and fungus all over it. For his cuts, I used coconut oil, baby oil, and manuka honey, which is proven to have medicinal properties. For his fungus, I used colloidal silver, turmeric, and coconut oil. Once his cuts and scrapes and fungus were gone, I then moved on to his dull coat. For this, I groomed him really well and added lots of oil to his feed to make his coat shiny and soft. Because we have no proper equine vets, it's very difficult when something bad happens, like colic or an injury. This is why I'm so grateful for my trainers, On and Andre, for always being there for me and Moose when I didn't know what to do. A big issue with Moose is that he had no muscle. And without muscle, it's really difficult to do certain things, like jumping or like certain movements. Every few months, an equine massage specialist, Rodney Grogan, comes to the stables and works on the horses that need it. He informed me that Moose has a sore back. So I asked him what could be done. He told me that he favors his right side, meaning his symmetry was off. So for this, in riding, I focused on a more bend and flexion for him to balance out his left side. Now I'm focused on symmetric muscle growth when riding. I realized there was someone in the equestrian community that could help me with some of Moose's issues. So I reached out to fellow equestrian Joyce. Joyce is currently building her own stable. So I asked her, what are you doing to create a natural diet for your horses? She's familiar with Moose's situation, and she told me there are 3 critical components to a horse's health. Number 1 is forage. Horses should be eating while moving and eating loads of different varieties. The chewing motion also helps the acid in their stomach and releases endorphins into their brains. Second is friends. Horses, like people, need socialization and physical touch. Without it, this can create aggression issues or they can become bad-tempered. And lastly is freedom. Horses should be walking 7 miles a day. Forage, friends, freedom. I have adjusted Moose's feed to give him a more natural diet, but unfortunately, it's very hard to have these 3 components with a horse in a stable all day. I realized through this process that I want to raise awareness among equestrians on how to maintain good horse health. Some problems may include cart horses overworked and kept in stalls all day, only when not working. Many ponies are forced to work in the heat. Many horses share stalls where disease can spread, wounds untreated, and limited reach to veterinary practice and treatment. I want to educate equestrians in Indonesia on basic horse care. So, after my quest is done, I hope to publish a document in Indonesian and English on how to maintain good horse health. Through this journey, I have had trainers ask me why I bought my horse. People tell me that my horse is too weak, and my parents threaten to sell him. Through all this, Moose has come out on the other side, and it has taught me to keep a positive mindset through it all. And he has changed drastically. He has gained weight, is more muscular, has no colic or giardia. His back issues are almost gone, and we have found the perfect feed balance to keep him healthy and up to weight. I'm so glad I went through this experience. And I can say that Moose is on his way to a full recovery. And finally, I would like to give a huge thanks to everyone here and everyone that has supported me through this journey, especially my mom, my dad, and my trainer, On, and of course, my teachers. Thank you.